Hi everyone, Eric here. Today I'm with CEO of My Chemical Factory. She does not have her camera on because of internet issues, and she decided that she wanted to just interview me over voice. So, you're stuck looking at my face for the next 15-20 minutes. Sorry. No, you'd much rather be seeing both of us, but we'll figure it out and get it together next time. So Rachel had some questions she wanted to ask me, 10 of them. They're a little bit personal. It's about my personal struggles as an INFJ in my life and things of the sort, but I'm going to leave the specifics up to her. She didn't tell me much. She kind of gave me a rundown and then told me, prepare, this is kind of what we'll be talking about. So I have really no idea what I'm in for. We're both INFJs, and we decided it would be awesome if we actually tried making a video of an INFJ connecting and interviewing another INFJ. So, with that being said, Rachel, feel free to take the floor.
Okay, I just would like to bring up the fact that there was a suicidal INFJ trying to reach out to us through a group. And so we kind of all grouped up to support this person, including checking out some of her videos to see what she was like. So my first question, Eric, is knowing how she felt suicidal and how you also went and was supportive of her, what do you want other people to relate to when it comes to what you've been through?
Well, I want them to understand, first off, that I don't think there's a single person on earth who hasn't at one point thought about suicide. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be to shy away from. The very topic itself is widely known across the world. People from the age of 5 who have lost their parents question why they're alive, and people who are 60 and single still think that they might just want to run to the woods and end it all. Alright, suicide's not an issue that's uncommon. Every person on earth has dealt with depression, they've dealt with the struggle of life. So know first that there's nothing wrong with you. It's not unusual. It's just that a lot of people don't come open and talk about these thoughts because of society, because of the way that America and the whole legal system and safety system is set up. People are afraid to talk about their issues. They're afraid to talk about their struggles because they're afraid that they're going to be looked at as crazy or someone's going to put them in an institution. And I admitted myself because it was either that or expulsion, and we'll get to that later. But I'm someone who has attempted or has had thoughts for over 4 years of ending my life. So I'm someone who's lived the experience, and I've lived through feeling like I was ashamed, feeling like there was something wrong with me, and feeling like the world wouldn't understand me even if I tried. Just double checking that's recording, everyone. The world wouldn't understand me even if I tried explaining myself, because if I told them that I was upset, they would say, well, you don't have to kill yourself over it. And I felt really alone. I felt isolated. I felt like no one understood me. No one would know where I was coming from. If I told someone, it would come back to bite me, and I felt trapped. I felt like I was in a cage. I felt like if I told anybody any thoughts that I was having, they would look at me differently, and they wouldn't have compassion on me. Instead of saying, wow, he doesn't need to be locked away with his issues, he needs someone to comfort him through his issues, through his problems, through his struggles. I was afraid that if I came clean with my struggles and my fears and what I was going through, that rather than have support, I would have people concerned for my safety. And that's the last thing I needed, was more emotional baggage and concerns that I can't even carry. So I just kept quiet and I never said a word. And the main thing I want people to know is there's nothing wrong with you. It is normal. Every single person on earth has likely at one point or another thought about dying and killing themselves. Why am I trying? What's the struggle worth? Everyone's had that thought. And if you haven't had it yet, you will have it. It's just fact. Everyone on earth hits a rock bottom at some point. They hit a struggle they've never faced before, a new roadblock they've never been at. You may be rich, and you still might want to die because you feel unloved by your family members and your parents. So know that there's nothing wrong with you, and you don't have to tell people live what you're thinking about and what you're going through. But it is good to find at least one person you can confide in. I found that about a year ago. His name's Gabriel. He's my best friend. I found someone I can confide in about my personal issues, and he never once called the cops. He just said, well, what can I do for you? And he listened, and I needed that. I needed someone to listen. Going my whole life never saying a word just made these struggles so personal, and they really aren't. It's just life circumstances make us feel overwhelmed, or we're honestly depressed and we feel unloved. Whatever the case is, it gets to a point where if you don't talk about the struggles, it becomes a personal struggle. And that's whenever you need to be able to confide in someone and know that they're not going to penalize you for fighting through to live another day. The last thing you need is someone to penalize you for trying to live. So I want you to know that definitely use wisdom, but know that if you feel like you just need someone to listen to you, I can relate, and I promise you I'm not going to call the cops, not going to do anything like that. Some people be like, well, Eric, you're condemning them to death because what if they kill themselves? Then that's on you. It's not on me because I'm not the one holding the knife. I'm not the one holding the gun, and I'm not responsible for their free will. But me calling the cops isn't going to make their situation better. That's like telling your child, hey, I know you're depressed, but don't be depressed. Grade A parenting. You're not doing anything about the issue. Me calling the paramedics, well, we want to make sure you're safe, doesn't do anything about the fact that they still want to kill themselves or are having thoughts about it. And no one wants to die, they just want the pain to end. So that's what I really want everyone to take from this, is I want you to know it's normal. Understand why you're struggling. Understand the struggle is common. Understand you're really not alone. You may feel alone because no one talks about their issues and what they've gone through, and you feel like you don't have anyone to connect with, and just understand that it's just a struggle. But I want you to know that I understand it's just a struggle, and I want to be able to help you, whether that's through an ear or through this video.
Real quick, so it sounds like suicide is treated like a taboo.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So it sounds like you have experience for people to relate to, because you've had to deal with this on a chronic level where for a period of time it's happened multiple times.
Oh yeah.
So I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Besides you confiding in Gabriel, besides that, I think what's important is, because INFJs are introvert anyway, and then usually when we're feeling suicidal, we're usually alone.
Yes.
So how do you cope with it alone without anybody?
That's probably the biggest struggle I think we face is as introverts. We love our alone time, but that's whenever we do a lot of our thinking, and that can be dangerous, because we tend to, whenever we feel overwhelmed, we tend to not want to talk about our problems. We tend to internalize them and figure them out and try to think the source, what is the solution, and rather than talk like an extrovert to come to a conclusion, we prefer to come to a conclusion before we approach the world and deal with it in an extroverted manner. Introverts aren't not extroverts. It's not like we're anti-extrovert. We just prefer to internalize before we act, or before we speak. And extroverts prefer to speak and then while they're coming to a conclusion and just go with the flow, basically. ISFPs are really that way. And that's kind of the example I'm going to use here. Is ISFPs are very spur of the moment people. Thinking is their last cognitive function. They prefer to just let things take care of themselves and live in the moment, much like an extrovert does. But at the end of the day, they're still introverts. And this is kind of where I'm painting the scene, is being an introvert isn't the issue. It's being unable to manage your thoughts that becomes the issue. The ISFP may feel suicidal, but because they're so focused on their sensory surroundings and just kind of winging it, they tend to be less aware of how the thoughts are circulating, what's making them feel that way. They have intuition, they kind of pick up on some things, but more than anything, they find a way to distract themselves until the emotions settle down. And I think that's the biggest problem we as introverts run into, is we tend to allow our emotions to get involved in these moments of trying to figure out why am I feeling this way? What caused this? And And in regards to how to deal with it, that's a very, very difficult question because some issues cannot be dealt with alone. They just can't be. If you're an abuse victim, being alone isn't going to help you deal with it unless you're doing soul searching and looking to heal from wounds of abuse. And that was my circumstance. I was an abuse victim. I was sexually taken advantage of whenever I was still in second grade. It wasn't rape, but it was. I was clearly unaware of what was going on. And I mean, my entire life I felt completely isolated. My family wouldn't speak to me. They didn't understand me. I would always act out. My mother would mock me and slander me to the dinner table, took away the support of my grandparents. I felt completely isolated. So not only was I an introvert, but I was someone who had so much emotional wounds that even if I tried figuring out where they were coming from, it didn't solve the issue. So how do you deal with it is a pretty difficult question. I guess the real question is, can you deal with it? That's the biggest question you have to ask yourself. Before anything else, as an introvert, ask yourself, can you emotionally handle what you're trying to think about? If the answer is no, then don't try. I know it sounds crazy, but dealing with the emotions that come with it are the biggest struggle. If you cannot if you're not emotionally ready to tackle the issue head on, deal with the branches. Don't deal with the root, just deal with the branches. Focus on getting through the moment, because what's going to happen is over the course of time, you're going to continue thinking about these issues after your emotions have settled down. And as long as you can get through the emotional moments, as an introvert, you will rationally and internally come to the conclusion, now that I've dealt with that and I can think a little bit clearer, why was I so angry? And you'll slowly begin to unravel the knots of your internal struggles. Hold
okay,
back.
so
I'm gonna get a glass of
it
water.
sounds like...
One moment, I'm sorry. I'm doing a lot of talking, so I wanted to get some water.
Oh, that's good. So, from my understanding, dealing with it alone is for when you're dealing with your shadow self.
I would say, yeah. I would say don't try to... Alright, I'll put it to you this way. We were never made to go through this life alone. A man may never show fear whatsoever. But the moment you lock him in solitary confinement, give him 5 minutes and he's crying like a baby. We're emotional creatures and we crave connections. Even INFJs, what to me seems like the most isolated introverted personality, and yet the most extroverted introverted personality. We can't spend our lives alone and be healthy. The reason for this is because we crave emotional connections. So I would say if you're doing soul searching, it's not a bad idea to be alone, because that means people aren't taking the energy from you. But if you need emotional support, you don't want to isolate yourself. You're just furthering the damage.
Real quick about your comment where you said, be more like a branch or focus on the branches, not the roots. So when it comes to saying, hey, I can only handle this, or I can only handle this much, are you saying that getting through the surface stuff is more important than digging everything up?
Well, yes, because what happens with the healing process, most people don't know this, but depression doesn't come from nothing. When your own anger doesn't have an outlet, when you're so frustrated with a circumstance, with an issue, or with somebody, and you don't express that anger, it begins to turn inward and it's focused on the person, because they're analyzing and emotionally holding all of that anger in. That's where depression comes from. Anger turned inward is depression. But when you begin dealing with that depression, it's been sitting, eroding for so long that it feels so intense when you finally deal with the issue, most people always cry. Abuse victims will always cry in the healing process. The reason is because the pain cuts. It physically cuts you like anger is a sword, and it cuts you on the way down. And when you deal with that, yes, it feels great. You feel healed. You feel relieved, like a weight's lifted off of your shoulder. But it does hurt, and the pain is there. So to deal with the immediate, I need to get through this moment, and you kind of peel off one leaf at a time while you push the branches aside, and you kind of see that anger, that root of depression. It resurfaces as rage. Usually for an abuse victim, it'll be rage towards the abuser. There's a therapeutical term called transferous neurosis. What this is it means when you're dealing with an issue that's been so repressed so far down, and you begin talking to someone about your problems, the therapist will ask you questions to probe into your subconscious. And when they do this, all that pent up emotion is vomited on the therapist. And you're literally using the therapist as a substitute to express your frustration to the person or object that you never got to throw that frustration on. So dealing with those personal issues alone will only cause you to throw all that frustration on yourself. And then you'll get into this emotional spiral where you can't figure anything out. I'm not saying it's a bad idea to deal with those personal, deeper issues. I'm saying it's a bad idea to do it when you're not emotionally ready for it.
So I have a question where I want to know where your faith was. Did you have faith? Was it little? Were you lost?
Wow.
How did you get stronger?
Wow, that's deep. Did I have faith? Well, I was raised Catholic, but that never had any impartment on me whatsoever growing up. My mother took me to church, and I was such a small boy, I thought I was just going to see my friends. I never understood anything. So my whole family, my sister was an atheist, my other sister is agnostic and has no care whatsoever to find a faith. My mother said, "Oh, I go to church sometimes," and lied to me. So from a young age, she just she never went to church. She's disabled. I've seen her grow up my whole life with me. So me personally, I had no faith. At the age of 9 years old, all the anger that I couldn't deal with, because as an INFJ, we have to be incredibly self-aware. And it's really difficult when the people around you aren't aware of what you're going through. We're so such emotional people that from a young age we don't understand. We're children. Our brain and psyche isn't developed to understand these complex issues. So when the parents in the family ignore what an INFJ or child is going through on an emotional level, this is where a lot of anger towards parents tends to resurface in the preteen years. For me, at the ages of 10 and 11, I would cuss and scream at my mother. There was a time where I picked up a knife and held it to my heart, and I said, "Apologize or else I'm killing myself." All of that was just frustration towards my parents. I never had faith. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have anyone. And the struggles I faced were beyond what I can put into words. I had no friends in 8th grade. I sat alone at the lunch table. Someone pushed me on the floor, called me a freak of nature, and told me to kill myself. I mean, my whole childhood was soaked in pain and in sorrow and in loneliness. So I didn't have any faith whatsoever. And it wasn't until I reached my 10th grade year that someone invited me to go to church with them. I went and I felt really outcast. I felt like I didn't belong there. And it was at this point, looking back at it now, I realized I was an introvert by nature, and I was trying so hard to suppress that introverted nature and act more like an extrovert because I had no friends. I wanted love. I wanted someone to understand me. Heck, I didn't understand myself. I was such a mess. I didn't know up from down. And talking to me today, you say, "Wow, Eric's really wise. He must have gone through a lot of learning." No, I went through a lot of sorrow and I learned from it. But I had to deal with those issues first. That's why I'm so wise and I'm so grounded and I'm who you see today. But after going back, I heard about Jesus, and it was that Wednesday night where someone said, "If you go back with me, I'll never ask you to go again. I'll go with you." And as soon as she said that, I felt, wow, for the first time, someone actually wants to do something for me with just me in mind. She wants to spend time with me. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? If I have to go to church to make that happen, no, I don't want to. I don't really want to be a part of this. In my mind, if God is real, no one would be hurting. We'd all be free. And it wasn't until later in my life I approached that from a different angle and said, well, if everyone loved God, then why did they hurt me? It just didn't make sense to me. So I started pondering my faith. And at this point I thought to myself, you know what? How can I know what's real and what's not? Never once have I found someone who actually loved me. And that just made me question everything I ever knew. Growing up, I started thinking, what about my mom? She didn't care about me and my family, and my mom raised me, so of course she could have put me up for adoption or gave up on me. She never gave up. She did love me, but at the time, this was my thought process. And I met someone named Ashley. We had dated for 2 years, and we were even engaged. Well, after about a year, we had started. We were both virgins, but we had started because of her father had died 2 weeks before we met. Her grandfather. Her dad was disabled, and she was an emotional wreck. She had all these personal issues too and didn't deal with them. And some relationships happen for emotional reasons, as did this one. And after about a year, we were both in such a vulnerable spot that we ended up talking for about 40 minutes. One thing led to another, and sex became a part of our relationship, but it was for the wrong reasons. It became a emotional coping mechanism for the both of us to find closure. And over the course of time, through that self-destructive behavior, we lost that closure. And it got to the point where I was trying so hard to run from all of the feelings that I had pent up inside, that I had said to her, in my heart, I said, I will use sex to get your love. Or I'll use love to get your sex. And she said, well, I feel so unloved, I will use sex to get his love. And this just spiraled downhill. You can already imagine emotionally how that just broke apart. We were engaged after a year, and after 2 years, she had left me. I came out of church one day. I was in a really, really, like I said, emotionally just bad place. I didn't understand what was going on. And she sent her new boyfriend, without ever telling me, up to church to say, Ashley just wants to be friends. I'm thinking, who are you? I don't even know you. And I said, is she in the parking lot? He said, yeah. I said, I'm going to go find her. And I probed around the parking lot until I found her. And I said, is this true? And she said, yeah, I'm leaving you. Didn't give me a reason why. And I said, well, then I want the ring back. We're no longer engaged. She said, no, I like it. And at this point, I was just broken. Everything I'd ever known fell apart right before my eyes. And I was forced to run headlong into all of my issues, and I couldn't deal with them. And I started having thoughts of suicide all over again. Only this time it was much worse. And I reached a breaking point where I just couldn't deal with it, and I was in tears, and I didn't have my license, I didn't have my permit, I was coddled my whole life, so since everything was always handed to me and I had all this anger inside, I never connected with my mom, I never connected with my family. So even though I asked her over 20 times, give me my permit, take me to get my permit, she said no, over and over. My mother was a manipulator and constantly tried to make me dependent on her, toxic parenting. She made me dependent on her so I couldn't have my own independence. And this is where a lot of my anger came from. From a young age, she would put me on medication and made me feel like there was something wrong with me. She just didn't know how to handle me, how to deal with me, what my issues were. She didn't know. So at this point, I broke. I just lost it. And I remember crying. And I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I said, I have nothing, I have no one. What in the world do I have to lean on in my time of trouble? There is no one. I can't lean on myself. I can't lean on other people. I'm too scared to lean on an ambulance. I don't know what to do. I felt hopeless. And I fell on my knees on my bed and I said, God, if you're real, I'm sorry. And if you can give me a second chance somehow to live my life again, I'll take it. Yet, at this point, Ashley just sent me a message saying, just prior to this, that she was pregnant. And she had 3 miscarriages during the time of our relationship, and after she left me, she was pregnant with my kid. Wow. That just crushed me. And I felt like I have no job, no life, no future. Now I'm going to end up in jail like my dad for not paying child support. My life is over. And I just cried and I said, God, if you're real, give me a chance to live my life again. And I hope you can forgive me. But whatever the case, I'm going to accept whatever consequence comes my way. I don't have a choice. And I heard a voice that day in my bedroom, an audible voice that said, you are forgiven. And 3 days later, she had a miscarriage, and I can't explain it to you, but I started feeling forgiveness in my heart towards Ashley and all that she had done to me. And it was wrong. And the anger that I had repressed for so long didn't come up as rage. It came up as sorrow. And it was just wiped away. I can't explain it to you, but that pain just started to leave. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had peace. A peace that I'd never known before. I felt personally, emotionally affirmed, and I'd never felt that. And that really grounded my faith in Jesus. Because I had prayed to other gods. I had looked up into Molech and idolatry and all this other stuff, thinking maybe there's something I can lean on for strength in a time of need, and I found nothing. But over the course of time, I started hearing the voice of Jesus more and more, and he personally talked to me. And it was at this point that I realized that there's more to my faith than just faith. But there's actual relationship to the gospel. There's actual relationship to the Bible, and I'd never known relationship. I never knew what it was like to be connected with someone. I never knew what it was like to have a friend. And I quickly started realizing that he was all that I had. So that kind of became the central theme of my life from that point on. That was 5.5 years ago, roughly. And from that point forward, my faith just kind of became the reason I do everything that I do. What I base my life around. The scriptures and the teachings in the Bible are what I grounded myself in. And it brought me to where I am today.
So this is a really hard question to ask because I'm not sure how to ask it, but I think it's one of the most important questions is, if you're triggered by something, how long does it take you to get out of that headspace? Is it a minute, 5 minutes, years? Like, how do you get out of it, and how long are you in it?
I don't. I never get out of it. I get out of it whenever the issue is dealt with or it passes. The issue's there, it doesn't go anywhere, and I have to be strong-willed. I have to have strong mental fortitude. And when I don't, I pray, and I turn to the Bible for advice and guidance to renew my mind. The Bible says to renew your mind, so I continually read the scriptures so that I can remember what they say. And whenever I'm feeling angry, I have to remember love is patient. So I choose to be patient. Whenever I feel like screaming and cussing and slandering someone's name, I have to remember that Proverbs says that a man of understanding uses few words, but a fool is quick to slander his neighbor. And he flatters them with his lips, but harbors deceit in his heart. And I said, you know what? I want to be authentic. I don't want to harbor deceit in my heart. I don't want to make out like I'm trying to be kind when I know for a fact I've done wrong. So I choose to do right. It's just that simple. The issue doesn't go away. It's not like there's some magical remedy for the pain or some magical remedy for life struggles. There isn't. We struggle. The struggle doesn't go away. I just learn to deal with it differently.
So does that mean there's a possible relapse? Is there a possibility that this would happen again?
Are you talking about the suicide?
Yeah.
Well, in a sense, yeah, absolutely. I don't think that I've stopped dealing with thoughts of suicide. It's more that I no longer want to die. I no longer want to end my life, because now I have a purpose worth living for. I have someone worth living for, my God. And I have people like you and Gabriel, and now I have this YouTube channel, and then I'm helping people, and you guys comment, and it breaks my heart in such a beautiful way. I'm so filled with joy, and last time I cried tears of joy on my YouTube video. I love you guys. I love all of you from the bottom of my heart. I want you to be able to learn from my mistakes, learn from my life, learn from everything I've gone through. Heck, I have been blessed with surviving my experience. Look at how much I've been able to help you. Look at this video I'm able to make just because of it. I have a reason to live. You guys are my reason. Of course, I live for the gospel, and I live to share my faith. That's the reason I'm making these videos, because you'll see a change in me. You'll be like, Eric's different. He's not like Boom Shaka. He's not like any of the other INFJ people. He's shining. There's a glow. There's a confidence. There's a vitality about him that's different. There's life to this man. So of course, the gospel's the reason I do everything I do. But yeah, I can relapse an emotional hitting rock bottom. Everyone hits rock bottom even after they reach the top again. But I've been through the same situation so many times, hitting rock bottom. When I do this, I'm so focused on the race that I'm running and on the mission that's straight in front of me that I can't stop running for a moment. It's like the rap song that I had made. I won't rap, but I'll repeat the lyrics. I wrote it at a time where I was actually struggling with this depression, and I was having suicidal thoughts. And when I was having these thoughts, I was so focused on, no, I want to change the world. I want to help people. I want to impact people. So I started writing a rap song. Wake up living to another day trying, gotta make it better, gotta take it higher, gotta keep this rhyme, gotta keep the time, I have to keep the flow or I'll drag behind. I can't afford to lose my way, to lose my ground or make mistakes, though I'm battling my thoughts with every breath to live again and to reach the end of this race I'm in with other men. Battle to the top, only one will win. I'll hold my ground to the bitter end, to the crown that's saved for the sinful men. It's all about taking my experiences, surviving for you, surviving for other people. If you live for yourself, then whenever your strength fails, you're gonna fall. The only thing that will keep you grounded through every single situation that comes your way is an unshakable foundation, something that doesn't change, that doesn't shake. And the only thing that doesn't shake in this world is love for other people. When you're so focused on other people and your mission is humans, when your mission is people, then when your mission is to serve and minister to people with a heart of love, then even whenever you are low, they still need you and you have a purpose. So yeah, I do relapse. But I don't relapse into action anymore.
What did you do, if you don't mind saying it? Well, did you ingest something? Was it something you physically did to yourself, or just put yourself in a dangerous position?
Well, I cut myself before. Cut wasn't deep, but it was enough that I was willing to literally cut open my skin and look at the blood drip, because I felt so... When you feel so emotionally distressed that you're willing to suffer physical pain as a form of self-punishment, you've reached a bad place. So I physically punished myself, feeling like there's something wrong with me. And another time, I had held a knife to my stomach and physically started pressing it against my stomach, committing seppuku, which is a Japanese suicide. And it was at this point that the only reason why I didn't kill myself that day, I truly believe I would have killed myself, is because I thought of Gabriel. And I thought, how would he feel? This isn't fair to him, because he's stuck by my side when every other person in my life left. When everyone else left, Gabriel was the one person who stayed and told me that he loved me, and he showed me through his actions that he did. And he made time for me when nobody else would. And I thought to myself, this isn't fair to him. So my body was so tense, I couldn't pull my hand back. I just dropped the knife and it fell to the floor. I
That's amazing, especially for an INFJ to say that they were leaning on somebody else, because it's usually the INFJ that's taking on everything, and it's usually the INFJ that's afraid to ask for help.
I know.
So,
I've never known someone. I've never known a friend or faithful love like that in my entire life. I went 21 years of my life straight, having no one to lean on except myself. And I've got to tell you, I don't deserve him. Being real with you, after all the mistakes I've made and how many times I've tried door slamming him, and he just, anytime I door slam, he just said, "I'm so sorry for you, Eric. You must be so hurting," and he was only thinking about me. He was only ever thinking about me. I don't deserve him. I door slammed him 3 times. He shouldn't be in my life. I blocked him on Facebook and from my phone, and after all of that, he went out of his way to leave me a message, an actual message, just telling me that he's there if I want to come back, and that he's sorry if he did anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong, and he's still so selfless thinking about me. I don't deserve him. And you're right, INFJs are always the counselors. But for the first time in my life, 21 years, I have someone else to lean on. So that leads me to the next thing. I had obtained a gun, and I held it to my head, and I was a centimeter away from pulling the trigger and killing myself. And it was at this time that only, I think it was 5 minutes later, Gabriel had called me. And I put the gun back down. It had to be an act of God. There was no other way. Or it was just a miracle, one way or the other. He was at work, and he had called me and said, "I'm here for you." And that was the last time I ever attempted or had any desire to attempt a suicide in any way. He said he was there for me, and he just listened. And you know what? I expected him to say, "This is serious. Maybe you should get help." He never suggested that. Never once in all the years that I've been talking to him did he ever suggest I need to get help. He told me, "Eric, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just struggling." And now I'm carrying that flame forward. It's because of Gabriel that I have that outlook that I do now. You don't need help. There's nothing wrong with you. That's what he told me. And after living through it, I realized that's true for everyone. They don't need help. They need love.
I want your friend Gabriel. He sounds like an angel, really. And I've heard you talk about him a lot in a lot of other videos. You know, you're very lucky.
Fortunate, I am.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm just a bit overwhelmed thinking about him right now. I'm okay.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I know
it's
this
okay.
is probably gonna drain your energy.
You know what's interesting? Thinking about Gabriel gives me energy. You know, occasionally as an INFJ, you'll find that one introvert friend who doesn't drain you. Now, don't get me wrong. After we both talk constantly for about 3 or 4 hours straight, we get drained. But him and I usually have phone calls lasting a minimum of an hour and a maximum of 6 hours every day. Our average is 3. We usually talk for about 3 hours a day.
Wow.
It's a miracle, but let me tell you something that I've learned. You INFJs get drained because you are pouring more emotional energy into a relationship than the other person. And whenever you get to receive from the other person, the relationship doesn't drain you anymore. I've learned that. After Gabriel said, "Eric, what can I do to connect with you? Clearly I'm missing something." And I had to explain to him how deeply connected an INFJ has to feel to someone to really feel like they're connected with them, bonding with them. And bonding is such a loose word. I would say it's more like symbiosis for us. Our hearts have to be like connected, emotionally one, for us to feel like we're really alive. Like we have to be one with someone. We can dissect them mentally, but we have this craving to have their heart become one with ours. And Gabriel, I had to explain over the course of time how he can connect with me this way. And after he started doing this, talking with him doesn't drain me. As a matter of fact, when I feel drained, I call him, because he's always so supportive, and it just fuels me to keep going, and it gives me energy, seed to give to other people, to keep sowing.
So what advice would you give people? Advice period about suicide, getting through it, having friends, anything, like, what would be quotes that you would give people?
That's hard. I'd say I'm not going to give you any advice, because the last thing you need is someone telling you what they think you should do. Instead, I'm going to say, if your circumstance, and you will know it, if you feel like you need to lean on someone, then you can contact me. I'm not going to give you any specific advice other than I've already given in this channel. I think I've given incredible wisdom. Don't do this. It's okay to do this, but I can't heal you. I can't lead you through your own healing process. I can guide you through it, but me giving you advice is the same as saying, I'm gonna make choices in your circumstance for you, and it'll only make you feel like you don't have any control. And that is a lie. You do have control over your circumstances. You do have control over what you're going through, and you do have control over what you choose to do with your emotions. And I understand that whenever those emotions are too much, it feels like you just can't even think. You're just full of anxiety. Just make it go away. Make it go away. And in that moment, you're not thinking rationally. I understand that. Knowing that you're not thinking rationally, now that you've acknowledged that, you have control over what you do. You know you're not thinking rationally, so do what you know you should do. Do what you know you need to do to get through the moment. It will become clear in time. And again, if you need to talk to someone, and you need counsel, or you need an ear, someone to just shut their mouth and listen. Because the last thing you need whenever you're going through your own emotional trauma is for someone to run their mouth and tell you what's on their mind. You need them to shut up and listen to you, because you're the one in need, not them. And if you need that, I will leave my contact info in the description, my cell phone number, my email, and my Facebook, and you can contact me. And I will make time for you. I may not get to you right away. I have to make time for my channel. I have to make time for other people. I have a job, and I have to make time for me, or else I'll burn out. I have my own hobbies, and I have ambitions I need to chase. I'm still teaching myself Japanese, and so forth and so on. But I will make time for you. I will make time. That's the only advice I can give, is don't be irrational. Don't do something stupid in the heat of the moment because you want someone to validate you and notice you for emotional issues. I get it. You want the emotional recognition, and you want the connection, and you want the healing, and you want to be understood. But don't do something stupid because you're angry with somebody else. That frustration is surfacing in your moment of vulnerability. Good. That is the branch that you have to move past. That's the branch that you have to focus on. That feeling of frustration is what you need to carve a way through. You need to carve a pathway, because once you get through the frustration, your emotions will level. That's all I can tell you, is don't be stupid. I'm sorry, that's a very harsh way to put it. I didn't mean that. I was just thinking and talking out loud. Don't be irrational. I'm being stupid saying that to someone who's probably emotionally vulnerable. Please forgive me. Don't be irrational and do something stupid. That's what I meant to say.
So I want you to tell everybody and tell me reasons to love yourself.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think there's a way to tell someone who doesn't feel like they love themselves to love themselves. I feel like that's kind of... I will definitely give reasons, but first I'm going to say this. To those of you who feel unloved and who are depressed and having suicidal thoughts, you don't feel like you love yourself. And even though you want to, you don't feel like you can. And I understand that, and that's understandable. And there's nothing wrong with you for feeling that way. It's okay. And I'm not about to sit here and tell you all, even though you feel so hopeless, you should just love yourself anyway. And when you wake up tomorrow, put a smile on your face and know that you're a good person. Don't. I am sorry if anyone's ever told you that. Don't listen to them. They don't even know what they're saying. They don't know how to minister to you. Psychologically, they're damaging you and they don't even know it. I'm not about to hurt you emotionally. Listen, I'm an incredibly wise and incredibly insightful person. I'm going to school to be a therapist. I am not going to tell you everything's okay and to just love yourself through the pain. That's terrible advice. What I will say is I love you despite your pain. And I love you despite how you feel about yourself. That's what Gabriel was to me. I didn't love myself. But he taught me how to. When you reach the place where you no longer feel like you can love yourself, it takes someone to show you you are worth loving. And I'm willing to be that person for you. Why should you love yourself? For those of you who want the answer to the question, I can't answer that question without going back to my foundation. You want my insight as to why I think you should love yourself, it goes back to how I learned to love myself. And that goes straight back to the Bible and what the Bible has to say. So if you don't want to hear scripture, then this video, you might want to skip ahead in this video. Because I'm going to be sharing how I learned to love myself. And I'm going to share why I think you should. Number one, Jesus died for you. Despite all the mistakes and how you feel about yourself, how you feel, I've done so many bad things, I have so many regrets, I wish I could take back. But you know what? I'm 20 steps in the wrong direction. I can't turn back now. I just have to keep on pressing on. I can't turn to God for help. I'm just going to figure it out. I'll carve my own way. And you know what? My best wasn't good enough for God, so I'm not going to stop for a moment. I'm going to keep pressing on. Jesus didn't care. Scripture says he died for you despite your mistakes. That means that he was thinking about you when he died. You see, if we could by our own actions somehow right our wrongs, Jesus would have never had to die in the first place. And the Bible says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, despising its shame, and went to hell for 3 days and 3 nights before ascending at the right hand of God, making a way for you. That's what the Bible says. So that means that Jesus loved you so much, he said, you know what, they can't right their wrongs. So I'm going to go in their place, having the soul, the character, personality, thoughts, wills, desire, and emotion of the very person of God, so that I can, since they came from the seed of Adam and Eve, I'm going to come from the seed of Eve, but not of Adam. Therefore, I will live in tainted flesh to be tempted to do wrong, but I'm going to do right, so that I can honestly say, when I go back up to stand before God, that I will honestly be able to say, look, I was thinking about them. Psalm says that he has engraved your names on the palms of his hand. That means he was thinking about you when he took the nails. God said, I don't care. And Jesus being the Holy Spirit said, being born of the Holy Spirit said, I don't care that they have made mistakes. I love them anyways, and I want them to know that even despite their mistakes, they can still be right with me as a direct result of my sacrifice for them. Jesus thought about you. He died for you even whenever you feel like you're not worth dying for. Jesus, and the Bible says you are worth dying for. The second thing is, the Bible says to love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor. As a matter of fact, self-love will become the highest love that you can give to somebody else. Because it's only by making you your center, building yourself up, that you can give to other people. That kind of love comes from selfish ambition. But the love of God comes from him, from Jesus. It's divine love that can only come from his heart. And when you begin to develop relationship with God and with Jesus, you get that love. That love teaches you to love yourself. Because as you grow in learning about God and what he thinks about you and how he feels about you and the thoughts that he has for you, for I know the thoughts that I have for you, declares the Lord, thoughts to do good and to prosper you. Prosper me? This Welch? After all the mistakes I've made, after all of the evil things I've said to people, I told people to kill themselves, and you have good plans for me? When you begin to understand how God sees you, you learn to say, you know what? It doesn't matter what I do or what I will do or what I have done. It doesn't matter, because no matter how hard I try to change his mind, he still loves me. And I can't stop him from loving me. So I'll just accept it and take it as it is. That's how I learned to love myself. I got to a point where I said, you know what? It doesn't matter how many mistakes I made, how many times I turned back to pornography and the shame and the emptiness that it brings. He's still looking at me the same way. So why am I looking at myself differently? There's no point. There's no point in looking at myself differently, because he's just going to continue to tell me that he loves me. I might as well learn to love me too, with all of my faults and failures, just like Jesus does. So that's, if you want my advice, it's read what the Bible has to say about you, because it's the only foundation that's not changing. Your emotions will waver. So even a great boyfriend or a great spouse makes a terrible God. They're going to let you down. Nothing in this world stays the same for any long period of time, except the words of the Bible. And you might say, well, what about another religion, Eric? Don't you think I could just go to that instead? Well, I'll tell you this. Proverbs, the book of Proverbs is full of wisdom. It's nothing but wisdom. So-and-so lived through such and such circumstance here. Don't wear yourself out to get rich. Cast a glance at riches and they're gone. As soon as you realize that, you're like, wow, that's actually really wise words. You're right. Why am I focused on riches? I should be focusing on living in the moment and enjoying what life has to offer, not living to work and working to live. That's no way to live your life. So Proverbs is full of wise words, and one of them is this: truth will stand the test of time, but lies will be exposed. So if you turn to another faith, you turn to the Holy Quran or words of Confucius, then you'll find out for yourself when push comes to shove, if those words stay grounded, or if they end up leaving you without a purpose and without an answer. So that's the only advice I can give you. I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to tell you become a Christian. What I am saying is the Bible has helped me, and it is the foundation that has stayed true through all of my struggles and all of my bottoms and all of my tops, all of my highs, all of my lows. So the advice I can give to all of you is learn to love yourself by learning to love yourself. But it takes somebody else teaching you how to love yourself before you can really say, you know what? My wife has been so faithful to me. You know, after all the arguments we've gotten into, she's still here. She does love me. And I think I can learn to love myself because she loves me. When she said I do, 10 years later, she's still here. And that must mean that she really values my character. And you know what? I care what she thinks, and I value her word, and therefore I'll believe what she has to say about me, disregarding how I feel. No, I may not feel happy with myself, but you know what? She says that I did a great job. And I don't trust my feelings because they're wavering too much, but I trust her. So therefore, I will trust her to love myself. She loves me, and therefore I will love me. It takes somebody else showing you how to love yourself. That consistency, that doesn't change. If you have a friend and 3 years later they leave your life, they were never going to be faithful to you to begin with. All the times they said, I'll never leave, I'll never leave. There was a lie. It wasn't true. Truth stands the test of time. That was a lie. So it takes someone who doesn't change. It takes someone whose love remains consistent for you, whose faithfulness never leaves them, to teach you how to love yourself. There are certainly ways to learn to accept your faults, to learn, yeah, this is just a weakness, something I struggle with. But to truly love yourself, I mean genuinely, authentically say, I love my laugh, I love my voice, I love the fact that I love being on night shift. Other people may criticize me for it, but my wife seems to love it. I get to take care of things whenever she's asleep, and she loves that, so I love it. To genuinely love everything about yourself, you're the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. It takes someone else who loves you despite all of your faults. And that's what relationship is all about. Whether it's like me with my best friend Gabriel, or whether it's with a boyfriend or girlfriend, someone you're dating. It takes somebody to help you to never waver, to help your feelings about yourself to never waver. Did I answer that well? I tried. I really tried.
Yeah, you did a good job. But this is going way over, and I don't want to exhaust you anymore. I really appreciate how honest you've been, how authentic, and how vulnerable you're being with your emotion. The more that women and men can see that it's acceptable and okay,
Yeah.
the more that we'll be like each other.
Yeah.
So I love your friend. I hope I see him someday on one of your videos or picture or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That would be good.
I think you did an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you. It was hard. I wasn't expecting the questions to be as probing as they were, and I didn't mind that. It was just I never thought about things the way that you asked me. Like, do you ever think of relapsing? I didn't think about that. They were good questions, but my message to the viewers is, I'm sorry, because I don't know if I answered them the way that you may have, the way that you may have been looking for. I really just kind of talked a lot throughout this video, and I may have deviated. I'm not sure if I had an answer to everything, and I'm sorry if you came hoping and expecting but didn't find what you were looking for. I tried. I really did. Comment, please. I could use the encouragement to know I did a good job, but comment if this helped you. Honestly, I really hope my transparency has brought to light some that what do you call it, emotional validation for you. But do me a favor, please try to be gentle. This was, I really put my heart on the table here, so please don't take a knife and stab it in the comments. I understand if you don't agree 100%, that's fine, but don't criticize me harshly about anything that I've talked about or said, not only for me, but because there are other people who are probably going to be sharing parts of their heart, and if you say one thing and it's a direct attack against me, and other people read it and they feel that they can't be vulnerable anymore, you're not only hurting me, you're hurting every other vulnerable person in the comments. So please be gentle, not just for me, but this is a very, very personal and a very vulnerable topic for everybody, even people who aren't struggling with depression. So please be supportive. I am not at all telling you don't share your heart if you have something to share, but be sensitive of how people will respond to it, and try as best as you can not to directly say, well, here's what I think about the issue. If it doesn't build people up in some way or other, please just don't say it. It's better that nothing be said and people be able to internally as introverts process this information than for every single introvert to say what's on their mind in the comments. Try to keep it supportive, just because this is a very heavy topic. Yeah, that's it. Any other words, Rachel? Okay.